My name is Joan Farr Heffington. I'm from Derby, Kansas. I am the CEO and founder of the Association for Honest Attorneys. I think I was first targeted back in 1999. I don't want to say that's when it began, but in 1999 I became the first female builder to join the Wichita Area Builders Association. And as a result of that, there was an article on the front page when I built my first house. I believe I was a threat to the male builders in the area. They sought to put me out of business, and that is what they did. I filed a lawsuit to try to keep my business going. They influenced every attorney I went to. There were 45 attorneys, and I had to handle the case myself. They had me in court every week for about 5 months. And even though I had 500 pieces of evidence, over 150 laws broken, it didn't matter. They dismissed the case. It was a couple months later, I appealed it. At a hearing, I made mention of the fact that, you know, grown-ups can have their issues, but you don't hurt the children. And so they proceeded to bring false charges against my 14-year-old son. As a result of that, I decided to form the Association for Honest Attorneys after seeing all the corruption that there was. And I wrote a book called 10 Secrets You Must Know Before Hiring a Lawyer. We had a website, could not get any publicity, so we began a newsletter about a year later in 2004. I proceeded to continue to try to build houses, but eventually was put out of business. Our organization is nonprofit, but I started experiencing different things happening. I was followed, my computer was hacked into and actually crashed twice. Phones were tapped. My bank account was altered. They would block transfers of money. My children, again, were targeted and still are being targeted to this day. They actually used the medical profession to try and cause me harm in the hospital during a couple of surgeries. And I nearly died. All of the stress caused my husband to die of a massive heart attack in 2006. However, it was prior to that. I want to say in 2004, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get my memory straight here. And I should have brought my notes, I didn't. They targeted a woman in my office. I had just tried to get help from our senator, who is now our governor. And instead of helping, she was targeted in the hospital a couple weeks later. I couldn't get help from anyone in our state. So I drove to Washington, D.C. I had a meeting in then Senator Obama's office. And I left a copy of my lawsuit against President Bush for what was going on, and others. A week later, they called and said they were going to do everything they could to remove the national security letter against me. And they said, "Is there no one in Kansas that will help you?" And I said, "No one." I was not familiar with politics at the time. I didn't realize that we're a red state, that we're Republican and that kind of thing. I always voted Republican, but it really didn't matter, I guess. So seeing that President Obama's office was the only one that was offering to help remove the national security letter, we began to support him, our organization did. And that only caused further targeting. But anyway, it has, like I said, our organization has turned into more of a watchdog organization. All we were trying to do was find honest attorneys, and I can tell you that to date, not one has joined our organization. So our feeling is that they're all in a club. And but at any rate, I ran for governor in 2010 to try and help targeted people. it was just a few weeks before I announced that I was running that I tried to get help for a targeted boy through their organization, which we call the AHA. He was being targeted after he noticed at our local Air Force base that planes were flying in and out, and as it turned out, Gitmo detainees were brought into our Air Force base. And they tried to get him to sign a form, and he refused. And so they targeted him, apparently infected him with H1N1, and duped his mother into committing him to an insane asylum. We tried to get him out when I found out, and I kept contacting our congressman's office. I said, I want a meeting with Eric Holder. Well, it would be a congressional inquiry, their office told me. Well, 4 days later, they brought a lawsuit against me for practicing law without a license. It's a false lawsuit. I never have presented myself as a lawyer, nor have I taken any money. As CEO of the Association for Honest Attorneys, I have made no money. I have never taken a salary. And so it's a false lawsuit. It is now in the Kansas Supreme Court waiting for a decision. They did rule that I could never help anyone again and fined me $120,000. Forced me to act as my own attorney at a hearing that I didn't even know was turning into a trial. And at any rate, they did lift the $120,000 fine, but apparently that's only an opinion. It is not an actual mandate, a ruling from the court. I recently found out. So they can sit on it as long as they want, and that's what they're doing. In the meantime, it continues on, I suppose. But I am now going to run for senator in 2014 and try to introduce what's called a Justice Amendment, and that should fix everything. That's on our website. It was mentioned in my book in 2003. I guess that's all I have to say.